Hey, pilot, welcome back to Ready for Pushback. I'm Nick Fialka. It's another interview show. Today's guest is a gentleman named Mark Paterson. And Mark tells a story that's not super fun, but I think is really poignant and really important for the pilots that I have been talking to recently. Mark was hired at a Part 121 carrier and did not succeed at training. He was fired from the company and kind of had a big hill to climb. And I wanted to unpack that because I speak to a lot of pilots that have been let go from an airline, whether it's a major or a regional or a ULCC, and they're trying to figure out what to do and how to do it and how they can possibly be successful. And this is the success story. Like, this is the conversation where you kind of find out all the tips and tricks to get you to where you want to be successful in aviation. So if you stumble, you have a hard time, something's not working out, just know that there is a path and there is a way that you can be successful. And that's what I want to do, is like bring this message of hope today for people that have had a hard time and haven't been successful. And it's way more people than you would expect. It is way more people. I talk to a lot of them. Right. So have some confidence, listen to this show. It's a great episode. Thank you to Mark for coming on and telling everybody his story, because I think it's super impactful. All right. So sit back, relax. Let's get ready for Pushback. It all started as a spark. Maybe it was the sound of jets racing across the sky, or the feeling of your heart racing as you watch a crop duster flying low and slow. Even then, you knew you were meant to fly. For pilots, it's more than just a job. It's a calling. The early mornings, the long hours, the relentless training, you didn't do it for the money. You did it for that moment. That moment when the wheels lift off and the earth falls away beneath you. But flying is just the beginning. The journey to your dream job takes more than just skill in the sky. It takes strategy on the ground and a lifetime of learning.
Most pilots don't understand what career opportunities are available in the world of aviation. Learn how to go from good to great, from flight school to regional to major, and from hopeful to hired. Whether you're sharpening your skills, building your resume, or preparing for that big interview, this is where pilots come to level up. Let's get ready for Pushback. Here's your host and my dad, Nick Fialka.
All right. Mark Paterson, how are you, buddy?
Hey, good. How are you doing?
I'm great, man. Thanks for coming to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You reached out to me on LinkedIn, I think, right?
Yes, I did. Been watching your listening to your podcast for a while, and just thought that this would be something great to talk about. I've heard so many inspiring stories from other pilots, and thought I would share mine and kind of keep adding to that.
Yeah, dude. Well, thank you. First off, tell the pilot that's listening a little bit about you and kind of where you came from.
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in Minneapolis, just outside of the Twin Cities here. And out of high school, I got into the restaurant industry. I was waiting on tables, and I saw an ad to be a flight attendant and thought that would be a perfect opportunity to take my service skills into the sky. And I wasn't sure if I was gonna, if I kind of met the prerequisites or what, but if I would hear back, but I did, and ended up getting through the interview process with Sun Country Airlines, low cost carrier out of Minneapolis. And after being a flight attendant there for a few years, I decided that I was going to make the jump to be a pilot. And that came really from just all the awesome people that I became surrounded with while being a flight attendant. And I didn't think that it was something that I realistically was going to be able to ever do in my life. If you would have asked 21-year-old Mark if he saw himself being a pilot after getting hired at Sun Country, the answer would have been no. I thought that you either had to be in the military or come from a family that had a lot of money, which I quickly realized was not true. Met all these pilots that became my mentors and friends, and they stepped me through it just kind of one thing at a time. They're like, well, you want to be a pilot, just go look at some local flight schools near you. Look at some mom and pop schools, or there's ATP, or, if you want to go, there's the college route, UND or you can also go through the military. But they had kind of just told me that the industry was in high demand for pilots, and that it would be a really good time if I were to decide to pursue it. And so the first thing that I did was just went and got my first class medical, so that I knew that it was going to be a good investment, and that it would be worth the time to actually go after it. And I decided to make the jump. I couldn't make my schedule work with doing flying lessons because I was on reserve as a flight attendant, even going into year 3. But so I left, and that really felt like a big leap of faith because I really enjoyed flight attending, and I'm a big people person. So I enjoyed talking to people and working alongside them. I knew I would lose my seniority if I ever wanted to go back. But I decided to go through with it. And actually, my very last week when I put in my notice, I met my wife, who's been a flight attendant there for 10 years. So that was a really cool connection, I guess, that I made on my way out. And after that, I got all my ratings at a local flight school at the Flying Cloud Airport, in-flight pilot training. Taught there for a year and a half through flight instructing. And then that's when I took my first crack at going to the airlines. Went to SkyWest, and unfortunately didn't make it through, but learned a ton throughout the process. And I think that's kind of what we're going to circle on and go back to, is a little bit more about that. But after that had happened, then I went to Wheels Up, and I flew on the King Air there for about a year as a first officer. That was great, just getting to learn the national airspace system and doing some flying around mountainous areas instead of flatland Minnesota. After that, then I went to FlexJet, flew on the Challenger there for 2 years as a first officer. And right about the time that I was getting ready to upgrade to captain, then I got the call that I was most excitedly waiting for, and that was to come over to Sun Country Airlines. And now I've been there for, I just actually finished my IOE last week. So that was my biggest comeback in my entire career, is going through what I did with SkyWest and then seeing that I can successfully get through a 121 program without any failures or any hiccups or any additional sim sessions. Like, that was just the biggest win. So the last few months I've just been on a high, enjoying training. And as of now, what else do I do outside of flying? Hang out with my wife and my daughter. We have a 2-year-old daughter. Her name's Rosalie. And we got a boy on the way. He'll be here in about 3 weeks.
Dude.
Do some prior to having kids and being busy with little ones at home, I did a lot of ice fishing and hunting and hiking outside, bike riding. But now I kind of find myself being home as much as I can and being indoors kind of while we just have the newborn babies coming.
Man, well, you're a true Minnesotan, man. Like, every time I talk to somebody from the cold north, they're like, yeah, no, I love some ice fishing. I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so cold. Wild. All right. Yeah, dude, I really want to hear about this experience at SkyWest, because so you were flight instructing. You went straight from flight instructing to SkyWest. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
How many hours were you about then, and what year was it?
I had just over 1,500 hours, and would have been 2021.
Okay.
Would have been
right after COVID, kind of.
Yeah, just after COVID.
Yeah, man. Okay, so you get to SkyWest and you start through the process. Like, what was your mindset?
Well, to be completely honest, I honestly thought that I was gonna get more hand holding than I did, but looking back at it, I did have some friends that went through before me that told me, like, if you don't get through, like, it's going to be it's really on you. It's not on them. And I wish that I would have listened to him more, but I do also know that they offer, really, from what I went through, I think that it was a really structured program. But for me personally, in my background, I don't think that I realized that I wasn't, like, set up the way that I needed to be successful. I don't have I didn't really have an aviation background outside of flight instructing. So, I mean, I noticed that some of my classmates that came from UND, they had some exposure to, like, jet systems, CRJ systems. And without having like a technical background, or like going through like a really good 141 program, I think that it was that I just kind of found myself like in a situation where it was a little bit more of a hurdle than what I realized it was going to be, and that it was harder than I thought it was going to be when going through it. So I wish I would have just, and they gave me some of my training material early, and I just thought to myself, like, yeah, the flows are going to come to me when I get in there. But I mean, if you have your training material a few weeks early, like, start your flows right off the bat. That's one thing that I definitely would have done differently prior to showing up.
Yeah, let's talk about those flows, because I think it's important to point out that the way you operate a 121 aircraft, whether it's an Embraer 175 or a CRJ, or just about anything at any airline, the flows are the way you do your checklist. So when you get in the jet, you sit down, you look at the book, you make sure all the numbers match, and then you just start getting ready. And the pilot flying has a job, and the pilot not flying has a job. Or at some points of it, it's either the first officer has a job to do and the captain has a job to do. And so the flow is literally hitting switches and turning knobs and setting things up in an order. And then when it's all said and done, then you call for the checklist to verify that you did it all. Is that how you'd explain it?
100%, yeah. So it's all like it's kind of a dance, it's a recital. Everybody kind of knows what they're supposed to be doing and when they're supposed to be doing it.
It also can be complex. It depends on your aircraft and your company and how they have it set up. But there are a lot of intricacies. Sometimes they follow just a nice little pattern. Sometimes they don't at all. And so there are certain triggers throughout that make you think, oh, I've got to go do this thing. Oh, I've got to go do that thing. And it takes a lot to learn, because you have to sit in front of it all the time and constantly go through and constantly figure out what's the next switch, what's the next thing to do.
Yes, yeah. And I wish I would have realized just how second nature it truly has to be. I mean, especially for real life situations. After you land, you pull off a runway, and it's like, turn right on this taxiway, then left on this taxiway, and then hold short of this runway, and then monitor this frequency, and then you have your captain look at you, and they're like, flaps up after landing checklist, and you got to be able to. It's literally kind of like juggling or something. Like, a big thing that helped me is I noticed that if I'm walking on the treadmill, I say things at the same time that I'm doing it, and try to chair fly everything as much as possible. And that's one thing that I wish that I knew and kind of recognized like more before going into it.
Yep, absolutely. I get that. And the second part of learning to fly one of those jets is to have to understand the different profiles that you have to fly, whether it's a takeoff and a departure, or an arrival to a landing, or even, hey, we've got to do single engine work. We've got to do stalls. We've got to do, steep turns. There's a whole list of things that have to follow a process. So that's a second set of things that you have to memorize. And, they don't expect you to know it all on day one, but you have to be able to catch up and know what you're doing today, and be able to study for what you're doing tomorrow, and be ready for the third day. And it's this perpetuating thing.
It is. I thought that it was still very well structured, and I was really close to getting through all the way. I think that just if you really get an early start, and like the more that you can get down ahead of time, then the better, because the more that you have room to learn all the other things that you need to know, because it's a lot at once, especially if you've never worked in a crew environment, between learning how an FMS works, learning the National Airspace System, how to fly a SID or a star, run a flow. It's a lot different than just like the normal general aviation world, and kind of like what and learn flight instructing.
And you made it to the third phase, right?
Yes, that's correct. So yeah, the maneuvers portion of the training, that is what you do prior to just doing the what's your LOE or your type ride. So the thing I would have had next would have been I think it was like 4 or 5 more sim sessions, and then the check ride for the type rating. And then after that, you're out in the actual airplane flying on IOE. And it's
Yeah.
it was like a 3-month footprint. I think I was about a week away from being done.
Yeah, probably. Tell the pilot listening what the maneuvers section is all about.
Yeah, so it's exactly how it sounds. It's flying the airplane is mainly what it boils down to. So you got single engine missed approaches, engine failures. We during the takeoff roll, which we call V1 cuts, and then you have doing approaches, so flying an ILS and executing a missed approach, a ton of go arounds, engine fires, engine failures, like I said, just basically everything that can go wrong is going to go wrong. And then you have some carriers do crosswind landings mixed in too.
Yeah, it's always a party. Good Lord. Each phase you get checked, and so you pass the first two, then you have your maneuvers validation, which is the ticket that you need to move on to the final phase. What was your event like?
So on the first attempt for the maneuvers validation, what had happened is what they do is they have each person goes, and so my partner was going. I went first, and then what had happened is there were some pilot monitoring things, and not only that, but just like crew things that like we both should have noticed that we both did wrong. So we actually failed as a crew on the first attempt, and like one of the things was putting in the wrong set of minimums for a Cat 3, or no, it was a Cat 2 approach, and my partner he was going to put bug the minimums in, and he was putting the barrel minimums in, and I was saying, no, we have to do the RA minimums are the right ones. And I didn't totally feel 100% confident in myself, because he came back to me and was like, no, it's these ones. And I was like, oh really, are you sure? Okay. And I went for it and put the barrel mins in for a Cat 2, and then the minimums bug like showed up at like 800 feet AGL or something like that when we were coming down the approach. So we executed a missed approach. So that was like kind of like the first thing. Once you start to build up a list in these checking events, like that's kind of when the examiner is gonna stop the event, or they could or just fail you. But and which is good. Like in the interest of safety, you shouldn't have a giant laundry list of mistakes that you made throughout your check ride. But then the other big mistake that was made was when we were given a hold. And what had happened is my partner put the inbound course on the outbound radial when he built it. And you always do dual concurrence before you execute anything in the FMS. And so when I looked at it, I should have caught it, that it was incorrect. And so then like those were kind of like the two things. And then unfortunately the pilot examiner failed us. And so that was, I mean, for me, that was a huge learning lesson just about like how important it is to really work as a crew. I think what happens a lot of the time is we get into like this single pilot mindset to where like only things that you mess up on like count towards you, but that's not true at all. Like if that guy isn't sitting behind us to tell us what we did wrong, the airplane is not going to go the right way that it should be if he built a hold incorrectly. So you got to be safe like on both ends and be able to cross check each other and be able to catch every mistake, no matter what it is.
That's so true, man. I have put the wrong turn in a hold in real life. So you are not alone, my friend. It's and the controller was like, "Are you making a right-hand turn?" And I looked and I thought, "Uh-oh." And I said, "Oh man, I'm so sorry." But he was super cool because he said, "Hey, next lap around, just make that left-hand turn." Like, thanks, bro. Appreciate you.
Yeah. But still, I mean, like I said, if there's a mountain that's on the other, that if you were to build it incorrectly and you were to fly into I mean, you could fly into a mountain, arguably, right? So,
absolutely. Only hold it at 30,000 feet. No, just tell me. Okay, so then you had to go to day 2. Like, I'm sure you must have been nervous and like just had anxiety up to your neck.
Yeah, we had gotten retrained. One of the hardest things about it was that my sim partner wouldn't spend any time with me chair flying anything outside of our sim sessions, but he had a
Mm.
lot going on in his life. I felt really bad for him because he was like still working on divorce paperwork and had lost like his entire business. And he was in his later 50s, but I mean, in that hiring environment, it was crazy. Like they were hiring everybody. It was like if you had a pulse, like you were going to regional airline. And so I think that that definitely made it harder. Like if we can't like chair fly some of this stuff together, um, that just made it more challenging for me. Because and then what I should have been doing is I should have been chair flying more, like in my hotel room by myself then. So I can't blame him or what he was going through exactly for my circumstances because I totally can recognize that I should have been chair flying more too.
I want everybody to kind of rewind the last like 3 minutes and re-listen to that answer because that that is like a Spitfire answer all day long, bro. Like it's all empathy. It's all putting the responsibility on yourself and what you could have done better. Anyway, are you a Spitfire client?
Yes, yeah.
Hell yeah,
Yeah.
you are, man. That is so good. It's like, but I couldn't go anymore. It was just so good. Such a good answer, like a solid response. And it's true because that's the fact. And listen, if anybody's listening to this and they're going to go to a simulator and you're going to have a sim partner, you two need to be espoused to each other during this time. Like you have to be together at the hip and spending all the time, like unbelievable amounts of time. You're eating meals together, you're spending the evenings together, you're spending the mornings together, like after you're done working out, like you are spending all of this time. And if you guys don't get along, like you've got to fight your way through it too.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point to make. And the more that you get to know that person, like especially when chair flying, like you can find each other's faults and flaws when you're chair flying. And then also you can tell each other where you think each other like is strong. And I think that that's huge because if you can avoid making all those mistakes like on like right there on the ground in the sim, then that's huge. That'll save you a ton of hiccups while you're in training.
When you get into that symbiotic relationship where you know what the other is thinking and feeling, or just like the cat 2 approach, and you see the barrow men's go in and you know that it's the RA men's that you need to put in, being able to communicate that to where they know where it's just like water, like nope, RAs, and you're like, oh yeah, RAs, got it. And you can help that person level up by being a good partner, and but it just works back and forth and back and forth, and you keep leveling up and keep leveling up. But when you don't have that, and you don't have that relationship already built and spend the time doing it, like man, divorce, babies, all the things that come when you're in training, man, just minimizing your exposure to those things is so important. And it's so hard if you have something going on that you can't control.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because your mind needs to be all the way there when you're going through it.
Amen. Okay, so day 2 comes around, and you know, you guys didn't succeed. Was it kind of the same thing? Was it something totally new?
No, actually, so he made it through on the second attempt and I did not. And what had happened is I went first and I got about 10 to 15 degrees off of runway heading while doing a V1 cut. And it took me, and it, I don't know how many seconds exactly it took me to get back, but if you have momentary deviations, right, that's fine. But if you kind of hang out away from runway heading for too long, like it's like, yeah, you know, like that wasn't good. Like we got to redo that. So I had to redo it. And that was for that was for my single engine missed approach, where I had messed that up. I had to redo that, and that took up some time. Usually they'll give you like a couple of redos. Like I think every training can be slightly different, but it's all if it's under like an AQP advanced qualification process, then usually it's kind of similarly structured, and usually you get like two redos basically. is how a lot of carriers will work. So I had to redo another thing too. I had my we had did a low visibility taxi, and I had missed the taxiway that I was supposed to turn on. They set the sim so like SMIGS is in effect, which is like low visibility taxi routes, what you're using. And then and then my partner went after me, and I almost like felt a little salty because he got the same exact low visibility taxi that I did, and he saw like where I missed the taxiway that I didn't turn on, and I was just like, well, like wow. And I think that this is kind of leading to where like I had some maturing to do at the time, and that's what I've noticed over the years since that had happened. Is it's kind of a maturity. It can be kind of a mature thing too. So if you go through something like that, like you should check yourself and see, kind of where you think you're at with like how you're growing and progressing in life. But um I just remember that was the other thing that I messed up. And then basically I got through almost everything on the check ride, but we ran out of time. So you only get 2 hours like in each seats, and then they switch seats. It's like a 4 hour sim session. And the guy doing our check ride was like, yeah, there's a couple things you messed up on that chewed up some time. If your partner here, if he can get through, and there's a little bit of time left at the end, we can kind of have you finish up the things that you were supposed to. But there's no guarantees, and we'll just see how it goes. So we switched seats, and he went, and he did a pretty good job and got it together and got through it without making anywhere near the amount of mistakes that I did. And but there wasn't any time left because I think he had to like redo like one thing that he messed up on. So it still chewed up like the full 2 hour block to do it. And then the evaluator was kind of like, man, I'm really sorry, but we used all the time that we had, and unfortunately, Mark, I got to mark you on sat again. And so I didn't know exactly what I didn't really know that the manual said that if you fail any event twice, that you're basically done. So then, but after having a conversation with the director of training, then he told me that, and I ended up having to go home after that had happened.
How was that? What'd that feel like?
That was probably one of the worst feelings I've ever had in my life. Like getting home was just like relieving to see my wife and everything, and just kind of be like, okay, the world isn't like truly over, but like, yeah, this was a huge, huge, huge setback. And part of me was wondering like, man, should I go into something else? Like, I got a lot of experience working in the restaurant industry. I've done fine dining. And I started applying actually to be a restaurant manager. I started applying for restaurant management positions right after it happened, but I also was applying to flying jobs, and I was trying to apply to the regionals, but they weren't answering back. Obviously, when you go through something fresh like that, like you're not going to be able to just go right back into a regional. You have to like get some passes under your belt, and usually like the next best thing to do is like either fly for a 135 carrier or go back to flight instructing, back to kind of what revisit like your roots, like, hey, what do I know and everything. So but yeah, man, that was just I just remember that being one of the worst feelings ever, is going through something like that. And it lasted a while. It takes a long time to get over an airline failure. I think it's a little different than failing like one of your ratings while you're going through flight school. I think that like a failure like that is a lot easier to come back from. But in the 121 realm, I just think that that's something that is just going to take a little bit more time to be able to come back from it.
I absolutely agree. And I can't tell you the amount of people that I have spoken to over the past few months that have had failures in a 121 carrier, whether it's at a regional or a major, and they're crushed, and people are really upset. And same thing, question whether or not aviation's worth it, if it's for them, if they can do it. And then you have to pick yourself up and then find somebody that's willing to take a chance on you. And to me, to like when they come to me like, what do I do? I tell them first off, like, I am so sorry, and I'm not going to be good at giving you a good idea, but I do think that you've got to talk to as many people as you possibly can, because somebody's going to have something. It's not going to be something huge or something that pays the bills or something that you can hang your hat on for the rest of your career, but it will be a first step. And all you need is that one first step, but it's going to take, and I mean, some guys I talk to like 6, 8, 10 months trying to find that thing. In my mind, when I look at you without even knowing the answer to the question, I feel like your timing in 2021 was an amazing time to lose your job, because there was still a big need. Do you
Yes,
agree?
that's 100% correct. Yeah, and so that's uh that's one of the big things, man. If everybody's hiring, it's a lot easier to get back on your feet in that kind of market. So you're really going to need a lot like if it was now, I would say that that I probably would have been doing a job like either moving or just doing a job that wasn't going to be my most favorite kind of flying gig. But I feel truly grateful that the industry was as good as it was when that happened.
Uh, One of the most recent ones that I've had in my life was a very close friend of mine lost his job at United, and he called me up and really was very down on himself, very upset. He's listening to the show right now, and I just, I said, man, you gotta get the Rolodex out. You've got to go through all your contact list, talk to everybody, and find out, because somebody has something, and it'll eventually pop. And he found a guy who flies for a major airline, who owns basically a Part 91 like ferry service. So you buy a plane, and you live. This guy, like, his first trip was going from the UK to Africa and flying a Pilatus from over like 7 or 8 days down to Africa, and it was a crazy long trip and a crazy, by himself doing some chaotic work. So, but he found a thing, and he's got a thing, and he's making money. And so, you went to Wheels Up. How was that when you sat down in the interview? I mean, boy, I I would not be thinking I was going to be getting a job. That, honestly, like, I would be like, nobody's going to hire me.
No, I thought, well, that was one of the offers. The other offer I had was from Boutique. So
Oh
I
yeah,
was going to be going out to like San Francisco to start ground school with them in a few weeks. And Wheels Up happened to come through like at the very last minute. And man, I'm so thankful that they did and that they gave me a shot. And yeah, I didn't think that I was going to get that job. I had done like probably I think 10 different interviews with different 135 operators. So I got the thumbs down
oof.
from quite a few places. And that was before I was a Spitfire client. So I really did not have much interview experience under my belt. And man,
Sure,
and the wounds were fresh from going
sure.
through that whole thing at SkyWest because I got on with Wheels Up 3 months after that happened.
Wow.
And that's, I mean, I'm thankful that the industry was really good. But me and the interviewer, we did hit it off. He's a great guy. He's the director. He last time I talked to him, he was the director of training at Wheels Up. So he's moved up the ranks at that company a lot, and that was just such a great place to work. I was so happy that I got on with them after that
Shout
happened.
out to my friends at Wheels Up. I know a ton of people over there, and I listen. They're just awesome. They're such great people. Even Pat Burns, the CEO over there, just great humans. And also, like, if you have the opportunity to and the privilege to work for them, you should. I think they're great.
Yeah, yeah, there was some of the best memories that I have were definitely flying there.
So cool. And how long were you there before you moved over to
I
PushJet?
was I was with Wheels Up for 1 year, and man, I jumped ship. I got a knee jerk reaction because at the time there was some talk about about bankruptcy with the company and everything. And this was before Delta had borrowed them some money and kind of lifted them up and helped them out where they needed it. But I was a little worried that I was going to be out of a job, so it was a tough choice to make, but I made the jump over to FlexJet then, and I had some people that I flew with at Wheels Up that went there and had great things to say. And man, again, another really great company,
How long
FlexJet.
did you end up spending at FlexJet?
Just about 2 years.
All right.
Mhm.
So you went through it. You went through the training process at Wheels Up, got signed off. A year later, did you go through recurrent at Wheels Up?
Yes, I did. I made it through a recurrent cycle too, and that was kind of like the extra motivation. Like, hey, yeah, I can do this. Like, I'm really I'm progressing here, and I'm figuring things out. But yeah, I with Wheels Up actually, I already had a positive that came out of SkyWest was I had my ATP written done, because that's like one of the first things that they have you do. And then when I went to Wheels Up, I already had that in hand, and that kind of helped with me getting the job. And so then I got my ATP there, and then also it was a type rating because the King Air 350 requires a type rating. So I mean, to pass that check ride was just such a huge win under my belt. But it's amazing, like when you go through something like what I did at SkyWest, like you show up if you know that you're supposed to be prepared, like you show up like 3 times more prepared than what you need to be. Like I before day one of ground school, I already knew all my flows when I showed up at Wheels Up, and
You were crushing.
I didn't need one extra simulator session. Passed my check ride without any flaws. And then that's really what kind of gave me the motivation and just like kind of the reassurance, like, hey, I still can do this. It was just a great reminder.
And did that translate over to FlexJet as well?
Yes, 100%. Yeah. Once I got there, I had no problems with any of the training at all. Didn't need any extra simulator sessions or anything like that. Like you kind of when you go through a failure at a regional too, like you kind of get a little bit of a sense, like you kind of know that you're drowning a little bit or that you're behind the ball. And that'll start to show like just a few days within a few days of starting. Usually you can kind of start to see weak areas, and that's why I think it's so important to like try to get a hold of like training materials early if you can, because that really helped me both at Wheels Up and at FlexJet was just having the training materials and having a little extra time to be able to study and prepare for everything. But in both cases, like I didn't need any extra sim time or fail any check rides then after that.
I love it. And now you're at Sun Country, which I think you might be the first guest I've had from Sun Country on the show.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, they're growing a lot. They've gotten pretty big now at over 700 pilots. When I
Yeah.
was a flight attendant there was 200 pilots. That was back in 2018 is when I left. So yeah, they're doing a lot of great things. It's a great place to be. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. What was the 7.3 training like?
It definitely had its challenges compared to corporate flying. Just things like just different 121 regulations that I wasn't like super aware of, like not turning less than 1,000 feet if you're in IMC. That was like one of the things that kind of that I had to learn and pay attention to, and then just learning how to put all these extra numbers in for performance into the FMS. And then also, I mean, the thing is just like so much heavier in like a tank compared to a corporate jet. Like the Challenger I flew was like a Ferrari. You just blast up to 45,000 feet and hang out up there. And now I'm like in a tank hanging out in the thunderstorms between 30 and 40,000 feet. Just a little bit different of an airplane to learn, and it definitely does not go down and slow down as well as like the Challenger did, because you just have so much more weight between passengers and fuel. And so there's different numbers that you have to pay more attention to and that you're going to see, and then you have to deal with like how to read a flight release and everything, which I mean I got a little bit of exposure with that at SkyWest, but it wasn't much. So I still kind of had to learn like what all these different numbers are, all your different takeoff weights and everything like that. So I would say that was kind of like the biggest challenge. with the 737. Oh, and then there's like so many different flap settings compared to the corporate jet that I flew to. So just like knowing each speed for each flap setting, the Challenger had just 30 degrees of flaps. It was 10, 20, or 30. Whereas like the Boeing, there's like, I don't know, the exact
There's like
number of different
49
settings.
different choices you can make in a 7.3. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is the airplane. It's like I call it like the Home Depot airplane. It's the airplane of doing. Like you're doing everything. It's not
Yeah.
doing everything for you. So
Yeah, that's true. That's a really good, that's a really good point. I do think, from my experience, it takes like 2.5 years on the line to really start to click into like, oh man, this is just every day. Like this is when you're flowing like water, and things are going right, and you figure all the things, and you've got just the things you do, and you know how the aircraft's going to respond. In the 7.5, when I'm in it, it's everybody always says like, what the hell's this thing doing now? Every time you turn around, you try to tell it to do something, and it just does something different. You're like, what's it doing now? And you're trying to figure it out. But that's, you get less and less of those moments the more experience you get.
yeah, I get to know the differences in the software that's running the autopilot and everything.
Yeah, man. So as we close up, first off, man, way to go. You've really come a long way. You've made all the hard choices, and you're back to where you started at Sun Country. That's so fun to me. And I'm sure they were pretty stoked to see you come through as well, huh?
Yeah, actually, I still have 10 classmates that were flight attendants with me that are all still there. So, and I actually got to fly with a couple of them. And one of them I did my flight attendant IOE with, and then I was doing my pilot IOE. So that was pretty cool to be like going through that again, but just in a different kind of situation. And then my mom is also a flight attendant at Sun Country. She's been there for 5 years. And then my wife's sister, so my sister-in-law. So yeah, man, it's become kind of a family thing, and it's really great to be back, and it's great to be home all the time with my family, especially now that we're having kids, because sometimes we just do turns, and I'm home in the same day.
There's a lot of at-home time at Sun Country, and that's one of the things I think people love about them, especially if you live in the Minneapolis area. Like, what a great opportunity.
Yeah, yeah.
Man. Well, dude, thank you for coming on the show. But before you go, I want you to, like, if somebody's having a failure right now, and they're kind of on the mend, like, what advice would you give them?
I would say that the biggest thing that's helped me throughout time is to kind of focus on one thing at a time. Because if you try to look at the whole picture, it can be really overwhelming. I never could have imagined myself becoming a pilot when I got hired as a flight attendant at the age of 21. But then once I was pointed out like each step, and I took one step at a time, that made it much easier to be able to like bear the overall process. And then I remember even taking my first flying lesson and watching the flight instructor do stalls, and I'm like, and then learning how to do stalls, and I just thought to myself like, okay, yeah, I can do them, but I don't ever see myself being able to teach them. And then all of a sudden you're teaching people how to do stalls, so you might not really exactly be able to see it, but if you just kind of follow a plan and work at one thing at a time, that makes things so much easier to digest in the long run. And then I think the second thing that I would say is to put yourself around the right kinds of people, because if you're around the right people, then so many doors can open and things can fall into place. Like that, and that was becoming a flight attendant for me. Because then all of a sudden, like I met all these pilots that could kind of point me in the right direction that I needed to be in, or even being like with Spitfire Elite. Just when you and going to interview conventions and just being around other people that know things in the industry can be such a big difference maker, is just surrounding yourself with others that can help you.
So good, dude. So good. Man, Mark, thank you for coming on the show. Congratulations on winning. Like, that's all you do is crush. And I'm proud of you, picking yourself back up and making it happen for you and your family. Like, there's a lot at stake, and you just did it with class. So good job, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you. It's I think that it should hopefully make a big difference to other people, just hearing some stories and being able to lift others up. And I'm really happy to give back to other people because so many people have given to me. So I'm really happy to share my story and to lift other people up.
All right, pilots, that's a wrap on this episode, and I know what you're thinking. You need to make yourself a little bit better. So how do you make yourself a little bit better? You tighten up your resume. So here's what I want you to do. Go over to my website, spitfireelite.com/podcast, and you can download my free resume template. It is tight, organized, and it's the perfect pilot resume. It's just something I like to do for the pilot group, and it is free to you. So go over there, spitfireelite.com/podcast, and download your free resume template. While you're over there, look at all the services that we offer. Lots of great interview prep, lots of great application review. Everything you need to be a professional pilot is right there. spitfireelite.com/podcast. Thanks, and I'll see you on the next episode.